In the previous lessons, you learned how to create a string and how to refer to individual characters in a string. The objective of this lesson is to get hands-on experience with string manipulation. Let's assume that we would like to write a function that takes a string as input argument and returns a string which is the reverse of the input string. For example, if the input to the function is hello there, then the output should be EREHT space OLLEH, which is the reverse of the string of hello there. Let's go to the Python environment and write this function. As usual, I have opened the Python IDLE, opened a new blank text file, and called it reverse string. Now I'm going to write my function. So I'm going to write a comment on the top of a function which says this function accepts a string as input and returns the reverse of the input string. Then I will call my function. The name of the function is reverse string, and one argument is passed to it, which is the input string. Then I will initialize my output string to be a empty string and prepare for my output. Using a for statement, I'm going to go through each character in my input string and then put the character before the output string. That basically means I will append the output string to the end of the character. And then once the for loop goes through all the characters in the input string, I'm returning the output string. Now I have to write a main program to test this function. So I'm going to define a string as a test string, and then I call the function and pass the test string to the function. Then I print the result. If I run this function, you see that it returns the reverse of the hello, which was the input string. To make sure that you understand this function, let me look at some details here. In the for loop, let's print each of the characters as I go through them. If I run my program this time, the for loop, each time it goes through each character of the input string. And as you can see, the first time that it goes through, the variable character is set to H. The next time, the variable character is set to E, and so on. Make sure that you understand that these 5 print statements are coming from within the function, which is from this print statement. And the last print statement, which actually prints the reverse of the hello, comes from this print statement once the function has finished and returned the result. Now let's see how the output string is formed each time that I go through the function. I'm going to add 2 print statements, one before I add the character to the output string and one after it. So let's see how the function goes through. The first time that I go through the for statement, my character is H. My output string before I add anything to it is blank, and then when I add character plus output string, then my output string would be H. Next, I go back to the for and I take the next character from the input string, which the character is E. My output string is H, so I put output string after the character, so I will get EH, and then assign EH back to the output string in this statement. Next, I go back through the for loop and get the next character, which is an L. So now my character is L, my output string is EH, then I will append output string at the end of the character. So the result will be LEH, which I assign it back to the output string again. Now, as you can see, I am building the reverse of the word backward. So it's H, then HE, then HEL, then HELL, then HELLO, and then I will exit the function and then come back and print the result. So let me comment out the print statements and run this function one more time, And then you can see that when I run this function, of course the output string would be the reverse of the hello. Let's write a different version of the same function to show you that there are many ways to solve the same problem. So here I'm writing the second version of the reverse string function. I will call it reverse string version 2 with the same input. I will prepare the output string the same way. This time, rather than going through each character of the input string, I'm going to go through indexes of each character and start from the last index and come back to the first. If I run my program and call the version 2, you see what happens. The first time that this for goes through, it sets the k equal to the length of the input string minus 1. So what is the length of the input string? The length of my input string is 5 because my input string has 5 characters. However, I'm starting from length of the input string minus 1. That means the first time that I'm going through this for loop, my k will be set to 4. And that is what will be printed here. Notice that in the range function, I have start, end, and step. My start is 4, my end is -1, and my step is -1. That basically means that my for loop starts from 4, goes backward, goes to 3, goes to 2, goes to 1, goes to 0. However, remember the last number, which is -1, would not be included, so it stops at 0. And then, because there is nothing returning from this function, when this function returns and I print the resulting string, the answer is none. Now let's continue with the rest of the function. I'm just printing the input string with the index of k. The first time the value of k is set to 4. So here I print the 4. Then I print the input string element with the index of 4. My index of the element 4 of my input string is O, because H has the index of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is what I print 4, and then this other printf statement prints O. Then I go back to my for loop and my index becomes 3. So I print 3 and I print the element from the input string with the index of 3, which in that case would be L. The program continues on like that, so it prints index of 2 and the element with the index of 2 is L, and then index of 1 and the element associated with that is E, and then index of 0 and element associated with that which is capital H. And then, since this function does not have any return statement, and this printf statement prints none. Next, I'm going to complete the function. This time, if I run my program, what will be printed is, of course, from the first printf statement, I get the index. The second printf statement gives me the character that I'm working on, and every time I'm adding that character to the current output string, or basically I am appending the character to the end of the output string, and once the entire for loop is finished, I am returning the output string, which in that case would be the reverse of hello, and the last printf statement is going to print that. So now let me comment out the extra printf statements and run this function, and you'll see that the answer is hello. Now, rather than fixing the test string in my main program, I'm going to ask the user to type a string and then pass it to my function. This time, when I run my program, the system asks the user to enter a string, and if I enter hello there, then the function goes and runs and reverses the input string and prints it. So what did you learn? You learned how to write a function to reverse a string, And you also learned that you can write the same function many different ways.